Hello, my name is Katie. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Princess. But today, what I want to talk about is Nick Fuentes based? And should he have a pet snake? The hard-hitting questions. Um, and then, of course, last night, as I'm falling asleep, after I spent all this time rewatching a bunch of the Nick Fuentes Tucker Carlson interview and watching all these like viral moments from Nick Fuentes, um, I come across some video accusing him of being controlled opposition, and that's a video I wanted to make in the near future too. Not about him specifically, just like who I think might be controlled opposition. Um, so I don't know if he is that. I am open to changing my mind. I change my mind all the time. I've talked about that a lot on this channel. I think my first video ever was about how I was on the left and then I was on the right. And now I just like think everything is a psyop. And I'm kind of in like right-wing conspiracy theory spaces. So, if I find out that I am wrong after posting this, I will not delete it. I will make another video talking about what about it made me wrong. But going with what I had wanted to talk about, I want to open this video with the speech at the end of Aya May's new song, Good Citizen, which has been going viral, which I highly recommend giving a listen to. And I don't know if she wrote it or like pulled it from something. Frankly, I looked up a ton of stuff to make this and I didn't want to look it up, so I didn't. Um, so the speech is: once you perceive what lies beneath the surface, once you glimpse the truth behind the polite illusions, you are faced with a terrible choice. Do you speak or do you remain silent? If you speak, you disturb the dream. If you stay silent, you disturb your soul. This is not a simple dilemma. It's an ancient tension between truth and belonging, between authenticity and acceptance. When you speak, when you dare to name what others deny, you risk being cast out, and not always gently. And since I'm starting with that speech, I feel like I naturally have to talk about the Nick Fuentes Tucker Carlson interview to start with, because I didn't really know who Nick Fuentes was. Like, I'd heard of him, but I didn't really know who he was until that interview. And as I mentioned in another video, I watched it because I'm a stubborn bitch. And everyone all over the internet was like, oh my God, these two evil men are gonna talk to each other. And how could this happen? And nobody should watch it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm a don't tell me what to do girly. So I went and watched it. And I felt a tremendous amount of sympathy for Nick. My heart ached for him. And I'm going to quote a lot from that interview to give some context for why I feel this way. And he faced that ancient dilemma, it seems, unbelievably young, and spoke what he believed to be the truth, and was ostracized, criticized, betrayed, and none of it made him shut his mouth. That alone to me makes him iconic if he is sincerely a man similar to the character he portrays himself to be on the internet. You don't have to like his ideas. I don't even still know a lot of his ideas. Some of his takes sound right. And some of he's just also funny. So it can be hard to know when to take him serious even. But you can hate everything that he has to say and everything that he thinks. But we do not have to deny that he is impressive in a multitude of ways. And I also felt inspired to talk about him. Like, while I was writing this out and thinking about what I wanted to say and looking into stuff he said and the controversies surrounding him and blah, 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 I was thinking about a podcast I watched maybe a year or two ago. I have no sense of time, so I have no idea. But it was the Relatable podcast with Allie Beth Stuckey. And she talked about sharing the arrows, which I'm going to explain in her own words. So on an Instagram post, she wrote, "On Relatable, we talk a lot about sharing the arrows. It's a phrase we use to describe what it looks like to stand up for and with those getting lambasted for their Christian or conservative views. When we see somebody being unfairly maligned, instead of shrinking back and saying, 'Glad that's not me,' we raise our hand and say, 'What she said, I believe it too. And any hate you're going to hurl her way, I'll take it with her.' That kind of courage and kindness is contagious. It empowers and emboldens. And I feel compelled to share Nick's arrows, whether I agree with his ideas or not. I cannot help but worry about him. I think about how isolated and alone and afraid he must feel. And betrayed. And I imagine his heart's been broken 100 times. And that breaks my heart, because while I don't necessarily agree with all his takes, he has the right to say them out loud without being ostracized and censored. Like, freedom of speech, remember that? Remember freedom of speech? That's a thing. I also believe that Nick and I have common enemies. Any enemy of free speech is my enemy. Anyone who would tell him, you, or I to shut up and stop asking questions is my enemy. Anyone who hates questions, ideas, speech, or even jokes so much that they think people should die for them are my enemy. And these are also Nick's enemies. And also because I feel like I relate so deeply to feeling like I can't trust anyone, feeling like the world is a dangerous place, and I imagine he feels this way. I mean, he's had mobs of people show up at his house and try to kill him. We'll get into that, but for what? For saying something you guys don't like? And you think you're the morally correct ones? That's crazy. I will say, if Nick Fuentes is someone who piques your interest and you maybe don't know a lot about, it is definitely worth watching the Nick Fuentes Tucker Carlson interview. But I will say also that there's one point in the interview where one of them's like, "I thought you were a Fed," and then the other one is like, responds in kind and is like, "Well, that's funny, I thought you were a Fed." And I was low-key sitting there like, plot twist, you're both Feds, this is all part of the theater. So perhaps that's the case. But if it is not, then these are my thoughts. So I want to give some background on Nick that I don't feel like is widely known. And this all comes from that interview. At 18, he's openly a Trump supporter, wearing his MAGA hat everywhere. This is at a time when this was not socially acceptable at all. It still doesn't feel super socially acceptable, but it was for sure worse back then. Back then, I was also captured by Trump derangement syndrome. um, and then he came through and betrayed everyone that voted for him anyway, so whatever. I don't have to feel that bad about that anymore. He was attending a college in Boston, a liberal city, and people would get in his face and scream at him. He decides to post about some of this on Twitter, and he was not a big name yet. He was not Nick Fuentes that we know today. He was essentially just a kid, freshly 18, 3 weeks into being in college and already receiving death threats, having people threatening to beat him up just for wearing the MAGA hat and tweeting a little bit about the way he'd been treated on campus. So 3 weeks in, he's already in danger and having to file police reports. And like I said earlier, the people doing this to him truly believe they're the good guys in this story. This is what morality looks like to them. So he's in real danger. So then he does this huge debate on campus. Everybody had issues with his stances and the things he said, but nobody wanted to debate him. So then the student body president decides he'll do it. And he lost super hard. The student body president lost super hard. Nick Fuentes won. Sounds like by a landslide. And so now enters this woman, Cassie Dillon, who works for the Daily Wire in some capacity. She live streamed the debate, was very impressed by Nick. The debate got like 30,000 views, and she told him he had like 5 job offers on the table because he did so well. He becomes friends with this Cassie woman associated with the Daily Wire. She helps get him a show on the Right Side Casting Network. Around this time is when he really starts to become America First and pro-Trump. I am going to have to quote the interview a lot right now. So then something happened that Nick said really struck him as strange. When Barack Obama was in what Nick calls the lame duck period, when Democrats lost the election, he's on his way out, and I'm quoting, "There's a resolution in the Security Council condemning the settlements in the West Bank and Israel. And typically, the U.S. delegation will veto those resolutions condemning Israel. Well, Obama, on his way out, got nothing to lose, so the U.S. delegation abstains from the resolution, and it passes. And Fox News and all the pro-Israel conservatives are calling him an anti-Semite. They're saying he hates Jews, he hates Israel, he's an anti-Semite." And I'm still quoting Nick. "I saw that and it struck me as strange because it seemed hypocritical. It seemed like how when conservatives would critique anything about race, we got called racist, or anything about feminism, we got called sexist. All Obama did was uphold U.S. policy on the West Bank that we've had since '67, which is that we don't support the settlements." I said, how is it anti-Semitic to just be consistent on our U.S. foreign policy? I got attacked for this. I wrote a big article about it. I tweeted about it. I tweeted to Ben Shapiro. I said, I've never seen anything on the Daily Wire that's actually critical of Israel. And he quote tweets me. Probably got 100 likes on this tweet. It was not a viral tweet. And says, "To accuse a Jew of dual loyalty is the surest sign of anti-Semitism." And this is sort of how it begins. So, still quoting Nick, "I'm driving to Christmas Eve Mass with my family, and I see on Twitter the notification comes up. Ben Shapiro quote tweets me, calling me an anti-Semite. And I was like, what is this? Like, why is this guy attacking me? Because I don't have a platform at this time. I'm not an influential guy or anything." And so then I put out another tweet, similar. I said something like, "If you're China first, you should live in China. If you're Mexico first, you should live in Mexico. If you're Israel first, maybe you should go live in Israel." And again, he quote tweets me and says, "You're an anti-Semite." And Nick's all confused. How does Ben Shapiro even know who he is? It turns out the friend that he made after he killed it at the campus debate, um, Cassie Dillon, had hit up Ben Shapiro and wanted him to take Nick under his wing. And so they started paying attention to Nick. I don't see Ben Shapiro as being someone who would take anyone under his wing. I don't see him as someone that would take kindly to competition. I don't see him as someone who is capable of tolerating dissenting viewpoints. So, bad idea, Cass. So this is what got them to start paying attention to Nick. And the more critical of Israel he was, the more pushback he got from both of them and many at the Daily Wire. You know, the free speech platform. The one where people are supposed to be able to talk about different ideas and have healthy debates about them. That platform. I say this in a lot of my videos. Sorry I keep moving around so much. I had back surgery not that long ago, and then I fell down the stairs. So I'm not doing so great. So Nick says, looking back, you could say they made a terrible mistake because look at what they sort of provoked or what they catalyzed. You've got to consider I'm 18 with no following and no network. I'm coming from the suburbs of Chicago. My parents didn't go to college. I have no connections. And so for them, it was very easy that if they detected that a promising young guy was going to become anti-Israel in the conservative movement, they could crush that person easily and grind them under the heel. So they sort of were alerted, oh, there's a precocious young guy that isn't on board with Israel. We'll keep an eye on him, and if he gets too vocal or popular, we'll cut him down, we'll crush him. How many people has Ben Shapiro tried to crush? Somebody make me a list. So then Tucker says, looking back with that 2020 hindsight, I mean, Ben Shapiro seems like a big part of your political evolution. You went from a fan/acolyte to an opponent and then just pivoted against everything that he believes. Nick says it was this new dialectic that Trump forced, that Trump planted the seed for. And Tucker responds, and the seed was America first. So once you accept that, a lot of the way we're doing things becomes impossible to support or justify. Nick follows that the contradiction becomes apparent. It gets moved to the center and it becomes unignorable if you're consistent. Tucker asks, what kind of efforts did they make to make you go away? Nick talks about how they tried to dissuade him from asking questions. He was friends with a lot of the Daily Wire writers, and he points out how many of them were Jewish. And he would ask them point blank, so why do we give Israel all this money? $3.8 billion per year. What is that for? And they would say, well, you know, there's a really good answer for that, but you're asking it in the wrong way. You're asking it in an anti-Semitic way. And he says, I'd say I'm just asking for the proof. What's the argument there? And so at first it was the kind of, hey man, could you kind of tone it down? Maybe just don't bring it up so much. But I was persistent because at the time I was genuinely inquisitive. I wanted to know, is there an actual reason? And I was actually expecting that there was a really good reason. He talks about seeking out answers on his own and finding that a lot of, in his words, neocon Jewish types were behind the Iraq War. There's the foreign aid complex, which is really unique. There's AIPAC, which is this intense foreign lobby where it's bipartisan. It seems to be the only thing the parties can agree on. And so it just made me burn with more curiosity. So I kept asking them, and eventually they said, you know what? We're not going to talk to you anymore. And these were supposed to be his friends. Okay? And all in one day, they say to him, you're done. We're blocking you. We're never going to speak to you again. We're never going to have you on our show. All all while Nick is still a freshman in college. This all spirals fast. Nick still has his show on the Right Side Casting Network, so he talks a little bit about Israel on his show, and his friends start attacking him. Cassie Dillon, the one who went from, wow, you're the next big thing, to let's not talk anymore, anti-Semite, you're canceled politically and from my life, starts calling his boss. She helped him get this gig. Starts calling his boss every day for weeks, saying that Nick was saying crazy, awful, racist things on his show, and if it was allowed to go on, it would make Nick's boss look bad, trying desperately to get him fired. And I feel like I can guarantee that this is a bitch that's like, cancel culture is no good, no good, no good, except for when I want to cancel someone, then it's very good. But that could be wrong. I could be making that up, but it feels true. I'm going to stop reading some quotes from the interview for a little bit because I feel it's valuable to listen to and I recommend it, but I'm really just trying to paint a picture here of this young man being ostracized from the get because he had the audacity to ask questions and refuse to shut up. And that's what I like about him. Even if I don't like his ideas, he doesn't cower to the mob. Like, you see people do this all the time. They'll say something they really think for like the first time ever, and the internet will be furious. And they hop on and like, I didn't mean it, I didn't fully understand, I'm going to learn better, I'm going to do better, and I'm going to take 10, 15 minutes away from the internet to self-reflect and do better. And he's kind of like, I said it, I meant it, if you don't like it, eat shit. And I love that energy. Whether I think he's right or not, I love that energy. I am so tired of cowards. And we're surrounded by cowards. Weak people and cowards. Since he first opened his mouth, he's never really been given a moment to breathe. The amount and level of betrayal he has experienced is gut-wrenching, and I can't even claim to know a quarter of it. I'm sure a good amount of this is just not even public information. There's obviously more in the interview, but there's also a ton more he's gone through publicly that we like all know about. Him getting doxxed. The guy tries to break into his house with a gun and crossbow, I think, after having just committed a triple homicide. Crowds of people showing up to his house to harass, stalk, intimidate, and threaten him. I heard him talk recently about how it's hard for him to have guy friends he can actually trust and confide in. I'm not sure he'd say confide in. That is not a quote. I just get the vibe he's not someone to be like, I just want to confide in someone. At least not publicly. But he can't have guy friends because there is financial incentive to betray him. I also heard him talk about how dating is hard and he can't join dating apps and try to find a girlfriend because people have proven that they would likely use something like that to set him up and hurt him. And being Nick Fuentes, can you ever really trust anyone or anything? I'm just Katie, and I can't trust anyone or anything. And I've been through some stuff that has led me here, for sure, but not 200 people at my house trying to hunt me. Not that. And I said it earlier, and I'm going to say it again. Nick's ideas aren't even why I've decided to take the stance that he is in fact based. It is his character, his boldness, his bravery, his perseverance, his refusal to back down and shut up ever, and the personal sacrifices he has made in order to pursue truth and to say whatever the fuck he wants out loud. It's admirable and it's inspiring. I, too, want to say whatever the fuck I want out loud, and I have spent a lot of my life being a coward and a people pleaser, and that is part of why I made this YouTube channel, because I want to practice saying things that I think are true out loud, and I will follow up if I'm wrong. I've not got my heels digged in about most issues. There are a couple things where I'm like, listen, I'm right, end of story. But most things I'm willing to rethink. Um, but even if I'm wrong, I don't want to shut up. I want to say what I think. And if I find out I'm wrong, I'll tell you I think that too. I just want to say what I want. Um, and let's not pretend like he's not so funny. If he wanted a career in comedy, he could have one in 30 seconds. You are a dishonest little worm if you don't think so. Um, and I had to collect some examples and watch some like viral, funny compilation videos. The first ones I got from Purge Viral on YouTube. I will tag him in the description. He does a lot of commentary on Nick Fuentes' podcast, and I've watched him at least a handful of times, and I enjoy him from what I know from the limited exposure to him that I have had. But through a compilation video he did of Nick's most viral moments, I found some gold. So obviously Nick dunking on Ben Shapiro is always going to be iconic. I'm always going to love it. Anyone dunking on Ben Shapiro, I'm going to love. Everyone's going to love it. I don't know anyone that fucks with Ben Shapiro anymore. He's just... His embarrassing himself tour has gone on too long. Too many people see it. He's screwed too many people, too many influential people. And people aren't really willing to keep their mouths shut about what a filthy little slug he is anymore. So there's like a whole bit for this that I suggest you find and watch. But he does this bit where he asks, does Ben Shapiro even drive a car? Or does he just sit on a throne carried by Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh? And they just carry it like at a bat mitzvah. And Ben Shapiro just points where he wants to go. It's honest work. Dead. That is so funny. And you have to watch the whole bit because you need the body language, the faces he's making. So funny. And then this one I just remembered because I was in a social setting the day after he said this, and I was like, I cannot wait to like whisper in the corner with a couple of people that would agree that this is hilarious. Some beef between Nick and JD Vance, and Nick says something about JD Vance's wife, who is Indian. And JD Vance pretends he's going to be like the cool, edgy wife defender. And he should defend his wife. What he tried didn't work. So JD Vance says, anyone who attacks my wife can eat shit. And Nick fucking Fuentes responds by claiming JD Vance was graciously inviting him to join his family for a traditional Indian dinner and declined. And I know some of you are mad. And I would just like to invite you to laugh more. It's funny. It is funny. It is funny. No one was hurt in the making of this joke. Everyone's physically okay. And if you're hurting over it that bad, get a journal. I don't know what to tell you. It's funny. Like, you guys want to kill comedy so bad and just whatever. And then this was, I think, in the compilation too, because I had never heard anything like this. And then at some point he's talking about Candace Owens, and he says, it's going to be crazy when we finally have hate sex and we're both transgender. I'm actually Candace Owens' white mom, but I transitioned, and she's my son, and we're going to get married. Maybe that's true. I guess you never know. Broseph, what? Who comes up with this? How do you come up with this? Hilarious, iconic. And you know I gotta bring reptiles into this. And this is a bit, you guys, before everyone tries to like come for me too. But let me explain a little first. All of this being said about my heart hurting for Nick, and I spoke in another video about how I feel he's a traumatized person based on all the horrifying things he's faced, and he's got to be in pain from all this betrayal. And Nick, if you see this, oh, I know you don't like to listen to women. A male fan of Nick, if you see this, you tell him that he needs to get a ball python. He will feel less alone. He will have something to snuggle with. It will make him feel good to take care of it. And Nick, homie, you can get a white, blue-eyed snake. You could get yourself an Aryan princess. Look at her. Look at her. Look at her. You want her. And she's just a little baby. She's going to grow up and get a nice size. And yeah, like I'm joking, but I'm not. I think it would be beneficial for your life to get a ball python. And I think it would be hilarious if you got, they're called the white ones with the blue eyes are called blue-eyed leucistic ball pythons. I think it would be hilarious. I don't think you should get a snake just for the bit, but I definitely think a blue-eyed Lucy could be part of the bit for sure. So many jokes could come from this. So I want to wrap it up kind of quick because this has gone on for a while already. The moral of the story, as of right now, is that Nick Fuentes is someone you can fuck with, whether you agree with him or not. Ben Shapiro is a loser. And as I said, Nick should get a blue-eyed Lucy. He should. Look at her. Look at her. And you'll love her so much that it'll change your life and you'll feel better and less alone. Who needs friends when you can have snakes? And snakes will never do you dirty the way people will. They're not capable of it. They're just not. For real though, I feel, part of why I feel like I want to defend Nick Fuentes is because it feels like defending myself. My own right to say whatever I want, even if people don't like it. My own right to ask questions and seek answers and change my mind. Like, he talks about his evolution of where he started and how his political ideas changed. He's shown growth. You can change your mind. And I sympathize with him so much. And perhaps my heart aches for him in a similar way that it aches for me. Very different storylines have led us to being people, and I think I said this earlier, who walk around the world afraid, can't trust anything or anyone, and it is a horrible fucking way to live. It is so painful. And you can laugh and put on a show and have your hot takes and your success, but when you are alone in a room, afraid, it hurts. And I don't think that he deserves it. And it inspires me that I imagine he lives this way, similar to me, very afraid, can't trust anybody, nothing. Everyone's your ops, even people that you think aren't. And it inspires me that I imagine he lives that way and still speaks his mind and stands on business and doesn't cave to the mob. He doesn't bend over backwards apologizing when he doesn't believe he's done something wrong. And frankly, I want to be more like that. And this, right now, is me practicing doing so. I do have an idea for a follow-up video on controlled opposition, including some of Nick Fuentes' ideas and statements he's made about people I want to talk about. And I guess I'll investigate the accusation that he himself is controlled opposition also, and tell you what I think about that. So that should be an interesting one. That might not be my next video because I'm going to have to deep dive a bunch of stuff for that, and I'm feeling yappy. I might just have to make a bunch of videos, but we'll get there, probably. No promises. Thank you for your time. Your time and attention are valuable, and you should not give those things to just anyone. If you gave me a chance today, I appreciate it tremendously, whether you agree with me or not. We can practice being polite to people we disagree with, and we can practice this in the comment section. If you think that Nick is controlled opposition, tell me. If you think he's based, tell me. If you have a favorite hot take of his, tell me. If you have a thing he's said that you just absolutely despise, tell me. There are a couple things in the controlled opposition argument that I do need to look into more and address. So maybe I should do that sooner than I feel like doing it. But tell me your thoughts. He's a very controversial figure. I imagine many people will have many thoughts. And you can also check out, I made another video titled, "Is Nick Fuentes pushing that woman off his porch iconic?" And the answer is yes, it is. Don't show up at people's houses or down you go. So thank you again for your time and attention. You too should get a ball python. They are the best, and they make your life better, and they should be a way more common pet than they are. I sincerely believe that there are people that are afraid of snakes that would actually love to have a ball python if they had any idea what they were like. She's just snuggled up on my wrist. She's just a bracelet. The most beautiful, and look at her eyes, you guys. And it's hard to see, but her pupils aren't even like black. They're like ruby red. She's just like, let's be so for real, the most sexy snake on the earth. Look at her. Look at her. And I get to be friends with her. So go get a ball python. See, I can never stop talking. Thank you for your time. Get a ball python. Try to do 1% better every day. Stay hydrated and pop in these comments and tell me what you think. I would sincerely love to know. Part of why I made a YouTube channel at all is because I want to have some kind of community where I can talk to people about the things that I think without... It's easier to talk to a camera alone in a room than to a person in front of me because you can't hurt me. So talk to me. Get a ball python. Drink water. Thank you for your time. Have a lovely day. Bye.